And as Attorney General Pam Bondi faces questions about Operation Arctic Frost, joining us to unpack it all is Horace Cooper, constitutional scholar and senior fellow of the National Center for Public Policy Research. Horace, it's great to have you back with us.
Good to be here.
Thank you. I want to talk to you about this Arctic frost. It's really sort of unprecedented what we're seeing coming out of it. This was an investigation where the FBI seemed to have accessed, for now, cell phone data for 8 Republican senators, as well as representative on the House side. Specifically, they were gathering location and communication info, how long the calls were, who they were talking to, from January 4th to January 7th. I want to play a soundbite from Attorney General Pam Bondi.
Arctic frost was an unconstitutional, undemocratic abuse of power. During Arctic frost, the FBI also placed 92 linked Republican individuals and Republican groups, such as Charlie Kirk's Turning Point, on their list. This is the kind of conduct that shattered the American people's faith in our government.
Horace, talk to us about how significant this is and ultimately could be.
Well, this entire investigation of former President Trump before he was president and after he was president turns on the question of what's called predication. What was the basis for the activities? Now, what we heard today was that there was unleashed a very, very broad scope of assessment of the activities of these senators in terms of their communications. It's true that they didn't, quote, listen in on them, but what they did do was target them, track them, monitor them, and see who else they could contact. The question for all of us, and that the Justice Department is going to help us to get to, and I hope the Senate Judiciary Committee will answer, is what was the origin? That's what I mean by predication. Why did anyone think that this would have been appropriate? This apparently went before a grand jury. Were there no actual judges involved in such a broad and wide-scoped investigation?
I think something else concerning, Horace, is the fact that this was not readily available to the new administration. This was only brought to the surface by a whistleblower. By all accounts, it was buried somewhere, deeply hidden. Senator Chuck Grassley says that this Arctic frost investigation actually formed the basis for Jack Smith's elector case against President Trump. Could you help unpack that, what that actually might mean?
Jack Smith claimed that the president attempted to overturn the outcome of the 2020 election by making calls to find out whether or not the electors that were not awarded to him should possibly have been awarded to him. This sort of investigation says the very thing that the Supreme Court said that the Department of Justice cannot do. This said that you can parse out when the President of the United States acts in his presidential capacity, but does so improperly and under a criminal basis. Our landmark Supreme Court ruling that just came out last year said, no. If it is a presidential power, it can't be the basis for criminal action. Yet Jack Smith did this. One of the things that the Trump legal team did last year was tell us what the specific behaviors are that are not part of the president's authority, and that was just simply refused. Even the judge overseeing the trial in D.C. refused to provide what that was.
Fascinating. As these reports continue to come out from about the political weaponization of government, AG Bondi is facing questions about clearing house and getting rid of a lot of the previous folks at the DOJ. Let's have another look.
What actions have been taken to hold DOJ officials accountable for their failures to manage the program and treat applicants with respect?
Chairman Grassley, as stated earlier, there have been many terminations from the Department of Justice, and we stand by all of those. Many of those are subject to active litigation.
So, Horace, as we all know, Washington, D.C., a lot of the institutions, typically the career, as they call them, the career employees, lean to the left. D.C. proper voted 92% for the Democratic candidate in the general election. What difficulties does Attorney General Pam Bondi face in terminating these career prosecutors, and what does the process need to look like legally?
Well, I was going to use a metaphor. They need to bring an Orkin team in and just get rid of a whole number of these individuals. In particular, it's very troubling that we've only had these few whistleblowers. Why didn't people stand up and say, I'm an attorney, I'm licensed as an officer of the court, I will not be party to these unconstitutional reviews, assessments, and activities in essentially an attack on the government of the United States. We didn't see that, and those who hold those important responsibilities, even if they're career, those people need to be removed.
Now, Horace, on that note, Pam Bondi today telling senators just how much pushback she's facing from within. Here's a look.
We've been sued more than 400 times since January 20th. Judges have issued more than 90 temporary restraining orders against us, more than the previous several administrations combined.
Talk to us about institutional inertia, and do you think that the goals of the Trump administration, the Trump agenda, if you will survive this sort of unprecedented pushback and level of litigation?
Well, it's interesting. We have a government shutdown, and the president keeps suggesting that that gives him enhanced leverage to remove people. If I were in his shoes, would focus on the Department of Justice and remove wholesale a large number of people. But there are other agencies where we're seeing individuals who are committed to thwarting the administration of Donald Trump. Those people, we should give them opportunities to demonstrate their opposition so that they can be removed. Something like a perp walk for the former FBI director, there were at least one individual, maybe two, who refused to participate. Why? Because they didn't agree that should be the policy. That was a sign that those people needed to be removed. Thankfully, AG Bundy did.
Now, lastly, I want to get your perspective on one last thing. An upcoming Supreme Court case will decide if states are allowed to ban the licensed counselors, as they're calling them, from discussion that aims to change a minor's self-identified sexual orientation or gender. Talk to us about this.
All right. This is a radical policy. It started in California, but it's moved to more than 20 states, where the state government tells the therapist, you may not treat this type of diagnosis, and we're going to take your license from you. We could fine you up, in the case of Colorado, we could fine you up to $5,000. What is the justification for the state getting in between the therapist and the patient? In this case, it's about gender identity, but according to what the arguments that were made by the state of Colorado today, it could actually be any matter that the state of Colorado disapproved of. California says that we believe these activities or materials are cancer causing, and they put that label on. Apparently, the Colorado Attorney General and the state of Colorado believe that they could say that about any type of mental health treatment. I don't believe that this is going to stand. I don't know that this is so much a free speech issue. I do believe that it's a case of government overreach, and it's also a case of infringing upon the religious expression of a therapist who uses their role to express their faith as well as treat people.
Horace Cooper, as always, really appreciate your expertise and insights.
Thank you.